Yo, what's going on? It's current silver coin owner and future diamond coin owner LionHeartZ here, bringing you guys the Day 4, final day of the opening stage of the PGL Major Copenhagen Daily Recap. In case you missed it, the last 3 series were held today. We've decided our final 3 teams joining the elimination stage and all of the remaining players on the board, and we have sent our final 3 opening participants packing. Superstars were made, mentals crumbled while other teams persevered under immense stress, and veteran players rolled back the years when their teams needed it most. So if you missed any of the action today, we'll be going over it right now, and make sure you stick around till the end of the video because I will be including my elimination stage pick'ems predictions. And as I'm like one of 5 people who didn't get absolutely destroyed in the first round, you should be paying attention to what I have to say. And while you're doing that, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps me out immensely on my way to reaching 1,000 subscribers so this channel can become monetized. Speaking of, you can support me directly right now by becoming a channel member. For $5 a month, you gain access to exclusive logos and emotes, as well as an exclusive shoutout at the end of every video. More features coming soon, so look forward to that. And while you're down there, make sure you follow me on Twitch as well. I'm live Sunday through Friday, 8:30 p.m., and let's get into the games. Our first series of the day was Legacy versus Mongolz, Asia's last hope, against the first hope Brazil ever had in CS, alongside a crew of young up-and-comers. We would head to Ancient, and the story of this map, and indeed in this series, was the rise of Mazino, 16 years old in his first major, and he walked up to a must-win match and turned into a superstar. Even if you don't have the time to watch the full match, go look up the highlights that Mazino put out on this map and in this series. This kid was stellar. Clutch after clutch, multi-kill rounds like they were free. He was making Legacy look dumb, lost, and confused all over the place. He'd lead the server with 27 kills and a 1.78 rating. But the story here was the individual moments. This was a back and forth game that saw both teams taking huge rounds throughout the duration. Legacy would jump out to an early lead, winning the pistol and the next round after. And on the third round, you would see the Mongolz on a low buy, just some deagles and a prayer. And just due to some bad aggression from the Legacy side, the Mongolz luck into 2 picks out of nowhere with the deags. They stormed the A site, and even though the gear advantage goes to Legacy, they get out-fragged in the round by the Mongolz, allowing them to capture early momentum when they really shouldn't have been in the round at all. They would take that and control 5 of the next 6 rounds, putting up a dominant T-side performance. Legacy would grab 3 of the next 4 to keep it close going into the second half, and then the Mongolz would take control of the game, winning the first 4 in dominant fashion. And it looked like Legacy were going to try and strike back for some control up until we hit round 15, when the Mazino show started and didn't end until the game was over. Some bad pushes by Mongolz would leave them in a 2v2 situation as the bomb would go down on the B site. 9-10 would be lost on the push around CT, and it came down to just Mazino against the world. He pushes through the smoke, finds the first player pillars, and it gets the snap on the second in the smoke for the 1v2 clutch and the bomb defuse. And then on 8-11 to put them on match point, Legacy have the A bomb site, a 4v3 advantage, but Blitz and Mazino would push Temple and CT, where Mazino would hit an insane triple kill, knocking the bomb carrier as Blitz equalized with his own pick on Temple. And at that point, it was map over. Mongolz go up 1-0, and we head to Ancient. And despite good performances by Barton and Colress, the rest of Legacy would go missing at the most crucial moment. Mongolz would win this 13-6, with everyone having double-digit kills and great impact throughout. 9-10 on the op looked unstoppable, and that gets them through to the next round and crucially secures another slot in the next major for the Asia Pacific region, which is incredible. Congrats to the Mongolz from 0-2 to 3-2 and in. What a great job. And to Legacy, you guys did better than I thought you would. You played good on some days, worse on others, but fundamentally I think this roster needs to hit the reset. I think Colress can work, but you need more fragging and frankly a new primary opper, and let Colress do what he does best, which is play hybrid and play rifle. Moving straight along, our next series would be Gamer Legion versus Imperial, And frankly, this was the most entertaining series of the day, and definitely one to go back and watch if you missed it, especially the first map on Overpass. So far in the Major, Gamer Legion were undefeated on Overpass, and that would be maintained despite how badly this game looked at the start. Imperial came out swinging. On their CT side, they would run off 9 rounds, including 7 straight on the back end of the half after losing the pistol to Gamer Legion. And really what it came down to is that Gamer Legion for once looked very sloppy on their T side. The executes didn't look sharp, concise, and methodic like they had in previous days. Weird gaps were left open, lapses in judgment, flanks were allowed in ways that they weren't in previous days. It just felt like the team was playing far too individual, whereas in previous days, their teamwork was really the difference in some of these series. It also helps that Descenti, Henny, and Phelps were all cooking on all cylinders, looking very good on the CT side, but obviously, there's 2 halves to every story, and as bad as Gamer Legion were on the T side, was as good as they played on the CT. On CT, they just locked it down. They won pistol and then the next 3. They conceded 2 to Imperial, which really, they were winnable rounds, came down to clutches, and really this game was locked in by Gamer Legion on round 18, a round they would lose due to a big mistake where they allowed Henny far too much room to navigate a clutch situation when frankly Gamer Legion should have won handily. This put them at 11-7 and in a situation where no more mistakes could be allowed. And frankly, they would lock the fuck in. A-Core would go from being quiet to frankly missing to dominating the server. At this point in the game, at round 18, he had 8 kills. He would end the match with 24, including the overtime. So he more than doubled his output in the last 8 rounds of the game, which is incredible. And they just straight picked them apart. They were better in all the duels and all the trades, they won all of their clutches, and were just so night and day for the Gamer Legion they were earlier in the match. So they go up 1-0 in the series. And we end this match with Henny yelling at his teammates. Imperial seem like they're about to tilt and completely go out. But what we would see next is one of the biggest capitulations and one of the biggest full-scale retreats I may have ever seen at the pro level in Counter-Strike. We'd enter Mirage, Snacks and his team would take the pistol round. Do you think they're about to lock in and show Imperial what strong mental looks like? And then Imperial, on the T side of Mirage, would run 5 straight, while Gamer Legion played some of their sloppiest Counter-Strike to that point in the tournament. Leading the charge for Imperial was Vinny and Phelps of all people, coming alive with form they hadn't shown in years when their team really needed it. Meanwhile, everything seemed to go quiet for Gamer Legion. A-Core would go quietly back to where he was previously. Volt would be entirely missing, and Snacks, who worked flanks for great picks in the past, couldn't get anything going, and his T-side mid-game calling was frankly awful. Sure, Gamer Legion would get the last 3 rounds on their CT half, but as soon as we swapped sides, Imperial never looked back. They would go 7 straight to win 13-6 and equalize the series at 1-1. And at this point, Gamer Legion, I think they just gave up. The mental fell apart, and they would never recover. We would go to Nuke, and there's not much to say. 13-5, Imperial dominate. They frankly make Gamer Legion look silly. They're making them question their smokes, make bad rotates. They're not clearing corners correctly. They're conceding picks when they shouldn't. They're missing shots. The only way I could describe it is that they stopped playing like a team and started playing like a pickup game. It looked like FPL out there, and not in a good way where everyone's fragging and having a good time. And the way that it seems like there's no cohesion and it's all falling apart. Gamer Legion would quietly and disappointingly exit the major without really putting up much of a fight. And that's really sad to see because this team had so much to offer and they had done so well previously. Congrats to Imperial becoming the 2nd Brazilian team to qualify. Their play in this series was immaculate. Henny was incredible. Phelps had 60 frags for the series, which is insane. I think they're going to do good in the next stage. I don't know if they'll advance, we'll get to that later. But right now, Imperial are cooking. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, we have the final series of the opening stage, Saw versus Furia. And honestly, if this was the first or the second day of the tournament, I think Saw would win this series every single time based on their form during those days. But as we saw yesterday from both teams, these are not the same Saw and Furia that entered the major. Furia are looking better and sharper with every series they play, and you know what? I can give credit where credit's due. I made fun of Fallen. I said he should retire. I thought he was old and washed up. And some of those criticisms are absolutely valid. However, in this series, when the chips were up and his back was against the wall, Fallen found gold, and I can't deny that. Meanwhile, I think Saw just hit a wall they couldn't overcome. This was their worst series of the tournament. None of their stars showed up. It came down to Murtis being the only positive player in terms of rating, but he couldn't put up a positive kill differential. In fact, no one could for the entirety of Team Saw. And then we go to Vertigo for the first map, and the story here is Fallen. Fallen would lead the server with a tied 20 kills, tied with Art and Yuri, but his 1.57 rating, the way he just dominated on the op, Fallen looked like the Fallen of old. He wasn't missing, he was hitting his shots, he was managing the game beautifully, and they owned this game front to back. Saw really were never in it. It's a 7-13 loss, and frankly, it's a hollow 7-13. Those rounds that Saw won didn't feel convincing whatsoever. And frankly, we move on to Ancient, and it's the same story, but this time Fallen with one of his best games in years. 25 kills, a 1.87 rating, 122 ADR as the primary omper is a godlike performance, and I can't say anything about that. I can't look at that and criticize it because Fallen rolled back the years, put the team on his back, looked at Serato and said, we're going to the next stage. And frankly, Saw, they just weren't good enough. I think Saw is a promising young team, and they face real competition here in the major for what felt like the first time, and now it's time to go back, lick your wounds, retool, and do something in the next tournament because this team showed promise that I believe they can actualize on in a different environment. Congrats to the teams who advanced. The opening stage of the major certainly had its fair share of upsets, but when it came down to it, I think the best teams in each series did in fact win, which is great. There aren't going to be any upsets looking back where you're like, man, another team should have qualified over X. The teams who were good enough made it, and that's all you can ask for. As we look forward to tomorrow and the start of the elimination stage, let's take a look at my pick and predictions for the next stage of action. Now, firstly, I think the schedule for tomorrow is weighing a lot of my choices here, because if I had made this without the knowledge of the schedule, I think my list would look a lot different. But we know what the matchups are, and that changes how I would go about this immensely. Firstly, on the B stream, tomorrow we have Navi opening up against Mongolz, Virtus Pro against Imperial, Complexity against Pan Gaming, and G2 Esports versus Furia. And I look at these, my gut instinct is that Navi will beat the Mongolz. I think Imperial can upset Virtus Pro because I do not believe in VP whatsoever. Complexity should beat Pan Gaming, but Big Azera could absolutely pop off. And then G2 should beat Furia, but I believe that will be a close match, especially in a best-of-1 scenario. We don't know what form to expect from G2 and Nico, so it could be easy to see them losing a best-of-1. And then, this is what weighed my picks heavily. The mainstream games are Mouse versus Ecstatic, Vitality versus Eternal Fire, FaZe Clan versus Heroic, and Team Spirit versus Cloud9. Without the knowledge of the schedule, I think I would have gone Team Spirit and FaZe as my 3-0 picks. But honestly, Team Spirit Cloud9, that game is a toss-up. I think Cloud9 are looking really good right now, and this is the first time Team Spirit are at a major. I think pressure could get to them, and they could let this slip. I think FaZe Clan can beat Heroic all day. Same thing with Vitality and Eternal Fire. Mouse versus Ecstatic, I think that's a toss-up. I think that can go either way. So with that knowledge in mind, we look at the in-game pick'ems, and here is what we got. I'm going with FaZe Clan and Vitality as my 3-0 picks. I think that these are two of the best teams in the world, arguably two of the top three. I believe in them most to hold it down, not let upsets happen. I think they have the best set of in-game leaders and talent amongst the field, and all of that makes me very confident that they're going to be good enough to make this happen and go through to the playoffs in the least amount of games. Following that, the 6 teams that I think will qualify behind them, I have G2, Team Spirit, Complexity, Heroic, Navi, and Cloud9. These 6 teams I believe in the most out of this field. Looking at the teams remaining on the board that I haven't selected, Virtus Pro. I just don't think that a team led by James has enough star power to power through this field. I think James is great, but I don't rate him as a best opper in the world. I think there's better oppers in this field, and when James isn't on, this team doesn't have a chance. Mouse, I think his lineup is alright, and they're on a good streak of recent form, but they're the most unproven team to me out of what we've seen. I could see them going through, I could see them not. I just don't really have enough confidence to definitively put them in my 3-1-3-2. Eternal Fire, I think they're too inconsistent. I think the game-to-game variance with Woxic and Zonteres is too much for them in this field. I think that they're likely to take maps off of some of these teams. When it comes down to a best of 3, especially later on, I just don't see them having it enough to be able to make it through a bigger series against some of these teams. Despite how good Mizzino played today, I think Mongolz are probably the weakest team remaining in the format next to Ecstatic. So I actually don't think Mongolz are going to be able to make it, but I believe in them as a best of 1 upset team. I think they'll win 1, and then they'll peter out in the 1-1-1-2 bracket. And despite how good both these teams played, Furia and Imperial, I think they're going to run out here. They're going to play a team like G2 or Heroic or Complexity in like the later best of 3s, and that's where they're going to hit the wall. They're good enough to win games, maybe win one of the best of 1s, but I don't think they're good enough to make it through the field to the next stage. And that leaves Pain and Ecstatic as my choices for 0-3. Now, I think the 0-3 is a juggle between Pain, Ecstatic, and the Mongolz. So if you pick any of those 3, I think you're pretty set for at least one of them to underperform and go out. I think Pain, despite their performance in the opening stage, that team is Bigazera and Nisim and nothing else. I don't think they have enough strats or fragging power to make it through the competition remaining in the field. And then Ecstatic, they played good in the opening stage, and this is a Danish major and they're a Danish team, so they have a lot going for them in terms of home crowd representation, but again, I don't think they're good enough for the field, so I don't think they'll make it through. As for my 3-1-3-2 teams and why I think they're going to qualify, G2, led by Nico, I think is some of the best star power in the world. They've been underperforming to start the year, but majors are where the best teams always tend to shine, especially as we move on into the format, so I expect G2 to make it through, but they might be a little sloppy. Team Spirit, obviously on an incredible run of form, Donk showing up as potentially one of the new best players in the world. I do think they're going to struggle early, just because they've never been here, but I expect them to make it through just because the power of that team is so well constructed. Complexity, this is my NA bias. I love Elige, I love Grim, I love this team. I think the story with Jason Lake is incredible. I want them to make the playoffs, so I believe they're going to do it. I think they're going to show huge upset potential and make the playoffs and maybe even do some damage there as well. Heroic, they're on a great run of form, they're a solid team. I think they're going to be a surprise pick. I don't think people will expect Heroic to do as well as they're gonna in this field. They have huge upset potential, especially in best of 3s. This team is on fire. I think they're a safe bet to move through. Navi, no simple, but Alexi B in full control. This lineup is so well constructed. The young fragging power is impressive. They've been great on land to open up the year. Navi, I think they are an easy bet to go 3-1-3-2, but not quite good enough to get that 3-0. Though they could be an upset 3-0 team. That's definitely possible. And finally, Cloud9. I really like this Cloud9 roster. Yes, they're inconsistent, but Hobbit is currently the best player in the major. If he continues that form, I think this team is well constructed. The lack of the op is concerning, so I don't think they're going to be doing well in some matchups, like if they have to play like a Vitality in a best of 3. However, they're still good enough to do it. They're on good form, they're one of the 3-0 teams, they're running high. I think they're going to have huge upset potential as well, which is why I think they'll make it in the 3-1-3-2. Whew. All right, man. We are through the opening stage, but man, things are only heating up. We have 16 best of 1s tomorrow. So make sure you guys follow the channel. More coverage coming your way. Like, comment, subscribe. Shout out to my channel members, Furley, Justin, and Jesse. I love you guys. Make sure you follow me on Twitch. I'll be talking about the major tonight. I love you guys. You have a great day. Peace.